Fastest lightning, it's the dream. Speed and drama, every turn on NFR, the rubber burns. Feel the thrill of every bend, where the champions transcend. Feel the power at NFR, burning tracks, driving far, where the races never end. NFR, only friend. Fernando calls the play on NFR every race day. Commentary sharp and loud, hyping up the roaring crowd. Feel the power at NFR, burning tracks, driving far, where the races never end. NFR, only friend. And now Fernando calls the play on NFR at race day. Commentary sharp and loud, hyping up the roaring crowd. Feel the power at NFR, burning tracks, driving far, where the races never end. NFR, only friend. Deaf Queen, the top supporter scene, in the crowd where speed is keen. NFR, the place to be. Join the race, watch and see.
Engines roar, lights flash, speeding through in a dash. Drivers with nerves of steel, thrills you can't conceal. Thursday nights rev high, 7:30 watch time fly. DRS lead on screen, NFR taking the scene. Fast lane fever, feel the thrill. Crowds are cheering, can't sit still. Race is tight, the drama real. On NFR, the magic's real. Rubber burns on the track, pressure's on, no turning back. Tensions rise with every lap, gotta win, no room for gap. DRS, battle fierce, through the chaos and the gears. Thursday night, the place to be. Tune to NFR and see. Fast lane fever, feel the thrill. Crowds are cheering, can't sit still. Race is tight, the drama real. On NFR, the magic's real.
Turn on the screen, it's NFR. Feel the rush like a shooting star. The engines roar, the tires scream. Fast as lightning, it's the dream. Speed and drama, every turn on NFR, the rubber burns. Feel the thrill of every bend, where the champions transcend. Feel the power at NFR, burning tracks, driving far, where the races never end. NFR, only friend. Fernando Fernando calls the play on NFR every race day. Commentary sharp and loud, hyping up the roaring crowd. Feel the power at NFR, burning tracks, driving far, where the races never end. NFR, our only friend. And now Fernando calls the play on NFR race day. Commentary sharp and loud, hyping up the roaring crowd. Feel the power at NFR, burning tracks, driving far, where the races never end. NFR, our only friend. Deaf Queen, the top supporter scene, in the crowd where speed is keen. NFR, the place to be. Join the race, watch and see.
Engines roar, lights flash, speeding through in a dash. Drivers with nerves of steel, thrills you can't conceal. Thursday nights rev high, 7:30 watch time fly. DRS lead on screen, NFR taking the scene. Fast lane fever, feel the thrill. Crowds are cheering, can't sit still. The race is tight, the drama real. On NFR, the magic's real. Rubber burns on the track, pressure's on, no turning back. Tensions rise with every lap. Gotta win, no room for gap. DRS, battle fierce, through the chaos and the gears. Thursday night, the place to be. Tune to NFR and see. Fast lane fever, feel the thrill. Crowds are cheering, can't sit still. The race is tight, the drama real. On NFR, the magic's real. DRS, battle fierce, through the chaos and the gears. Thursday night, the place to be. Tune to NFR and see. Fast lane fever, feel the thrill. Crowds are cheering, can't sit still. The race is tight, the drama real. On NFR, the magic's real. The magic's real. On magic's real. The magic's track like a shooting star. Feel the rush, NFR. Lap by lap, watch them spin. Victory's close, who will win? In our heads, the engine's din. NFR, let's begin. NFR, lights are green. Zooming fast, slick machine. Every twist, every scene. Catch the action on your screen. NFR, yeah. NFR, yeah. Drama high, stars afar. Round the track like a shooting star. Feel the rush, NFR. NFR, it's time to go. Feel the speed, let it flow. Racing hearts, watch them glow. Turn it up, start the show. NFR, feel the heat. Fast and fierce, never beats. Engines roar, can't stay off seats. Catch the thrill, it's so sweet. NFR, NFR. Drama high, stars afar. Round the track like a shooting
There we go. Good evening, everybody. Well, what a start. What a start. My headphones, well, they weren't plugged into where they should have been plugged into. They were plugged into the PlayStation. So, if you couldn't hear the beginning of the stream, I do apologize. But that means I get to repeat myself, and I don't have to be original. So, Lebby, you will have missed the action from qualifying unless you were just watching. If you were waiting for commentary, you didn't get any. We've just got 2 minutes remaining. Remember, this is a full-length sprint night. That means we're going to have 2 different qualifying sessions. This is just the first of those 2 qualifying sessions. This was a 12-minute session. There's just over a minute and a half to go. Lebby's in the pits. He's the quickest man so far. Then Secret, he's gone up into P2, 112.9. Second man into the 112s. Will has improved his time. It's a no, he hasn't. It's a 113.1. That was still his initial run. Shane also 113.1. That was his initial run. Welcome to Liesel. Thank you to Shane for letting me know there was a sound problem. Well, I've been doing this for a while, and I have to say that was pretty stupid of me. But thanks, Shane. That's the driver currently in P4, looking for an improvement on that 13.1, looking to be the third driver to pop up into the 112s. The 112 is not going to be enough. He's going to have to duck deep into the 112s. Lebby 112.7, that's his teammate up the road. Where is Shane? He's going through the penultimate corner, and now the final corner. Is he able to find an improvement? 113.1 is his current best. Where is Rota? Rota's on an outlap, so everybody out on track except for Secret. He has returned to the pits, so he's out of sync with everybody else. Lebby did get out of the pits, so he is going to try and defend that time. 112.7, not good enough for him. He wants a little more. Dan Ritfeldt, third driver, fourth driver into the 112s, but look how close it is. Lebby, the only driver in the 112.7 range, but then in the 112.9 range we have Dan Ritfeldt, Secret, Nick Gishin. We have Kev on a 13.0. And where is that second Ferrari? Still a 13.1. Brilliant lap time. But with how close this field is, it's only good enough for P8. I think he'd like to be higher up the order. J-Boy has completed his session. Will has completed his session, as has Secret, Nick Gishin, Zero to Cool, Fuster, all going over the checkered flag. Now Shane goes over the checkered flag. And well, 12.2, gauntlet thrown down. Does Lebby have something more? That's his teammate, the 2 Ferraris, looking to lock out the front row. Well, he's going to have to improve, because Rota's found an improvement. It's a 12.6. Goes up into P2, splits the Ferraris. Lebby needs to find a tenth of a second if he's going to change that scenario. And he's not. He's pulling into the pits. There was obviously no improvement on the cards, so we switched to Panda. Just 2 drivers left on circuit that could improve. One is Stoffel, he's at the rear of the field. Panda up in P4. I think there's going to be no improvement here. I don't think he got out in time. Let's have a look. Stoffel is also done. And I think that will be the end of sprint quali. Of course, if you've seen sprint nights on this channel in the past, you may be familiar with the other format that we sometimes run. That is where we'll have a qualifier, we'll have a sprint race, which is determined by reverse championship order. That's how they start. Then the race determines the feature race. Not tonight. Tonight is the full sprint feature evening, so we have the short quali for the sprint race, 12 minutes, then the sprint race, then another quali, then the feature race. Got to get through this quickly. Shane takes pole position for the sprint race. He's going to be joined by Rota on the front row. Then the second Ferrari in P3, Panda P4. They're followed by Dan Ritfeld, Nick Gishen, Sigrid, Kev, Will, J-Boy, Wankies, Zero to Cool, Stoffel, and Fuster. And will you look at that? Not even a whisper in the comment section. Nobody warned me. Not even about cloudy, intermediate. Oh no, this is full on. I think this is blue wall tires. This is going to be a sprint race with a difference. Of course, usually the sprint race, you put on the best set of tires available to you that can do the full distance of the race. Then you just throw everything at those tires for the length of that sprint race. But this is going to be a slightly different sprint race. Guys are going to have to tiptoe for the first lap or two. Of course, we do get a formation lap. You'll see the dual green lights there on the top left hand side of your screen. Now the drivers will get, usually I say, an opportunity to get some brake and tire temperature into the car. This time around I'll be saying to try and get a figure on these conditions. Let's have a look what tires these guys are on. Looked really wet in the pit lane. There's confirmation, I think, well, at least for that one driver. Let's just see the rest of the field. There we go, everybody on the blue tire. Of course, sprint race, meaning if the conditions remain exactly the same, there will be no need to change tires at any point in this race. You can go right to the end on a single set of tires. But on this opening lap, these cars are going to be squirmy. Of course, a lot of these guys, they don't spend as much time practicing in the rain as they do in the dry. So when it comes to the rain, little mistakes can creep in, even from the drivers you don't expect it from. But fortunately, if you do have a terrible sprint race, it's not going to affect where you start that feature race. We're going to have a separate qualifying session for that. Now Shane, he's raced far ahead of the field, so he's going to park that Ferrari and he's going to sit there for quite some time. Of course, we have quite a busy field, 14 drivers. Fuster at the rear of that field, and he's still entering the penultimate corner. So Shane's going to be sitting there for a while, not ideal. Of course, if you were able to get any brake temperature or any tire temperature, it's gone now. Terrible camera angle for the start of the race. Of course, if this was real F1, I don't think we'd have a standing start. So enjoy turn 1. Five red lights, they go out, and we're underway. It's going to be Shane, and I think Lebby has got past Rota already at the start. Terrible camera angle, must apologize, it's the game's fault. I think we're going to have a Ferrari 1-2 coming out of turn 1, unless the Haas does anything crazy. He doesn't. And these weather conditions, well, they're going to be tricky. They're going to be tricky throughout the race. As you can see there, the Ferrari in the lead, Shane just squirming around, lots of spray, lots of standing water. Then we have the second Ferrari in P2. Of course, if these Ferraris were to finish in any sort of result like this, 1-2 in the feature race, that would completely confirm everything in the constructors. I think there is still a mathematical chance they could lose, but that would require both Ferraris not finishing in the points in a few rounds. Of course, 3 rounds to go. This is round 10, and you do get this extra little opportunity to get a few bonus points in a sprint race. Then 2 rounds after this gives that team championship Ferrari very far ahead, 93 points. But like I said, there is still a mathematical chance, so we can't call it just yet. As far as the Drivers' Championship goes, nothing in it, still so much to play for with 3 rounds to go. Shane leads the way on 135 points, that's a 10-point lead from Levy, then a further 10 points back Panda in P3, and Wezo P4 on 91 points. I think everybody else might be a little bit too far away. We still have battles in the midfield for championship positions. So the guys are still going to be showing up for these last 3 rounds of the season. Still so much to play for. The constructors might be 1 race away, but the drivers is far from decided. Ferrari 1-2, Dan Ritfeldt in P3 for Alpine, then it's Rota P4, Nick Gishen in the first of the Williams, P5, then Secret, here's Panda in P7, in the leading Haas, does have a teammate, that's Stoffel down in P13, then Will in P8, the Aston Martin driver, of course in the feature race. As you know, top 10 drivers score points, but in the sprint race that's not the case, just the top 8 drivers score points. So if you want any of those bonus points on the table, you've got to be within the top 8 drivers, otherwise you will go home empty-handed from the sprint race. Of course, if you're watching, if you're here, say hello in the comment section so I know you're here. Don't sit quietly in the background, let me know who you're supporting, give me race predictions. Of course, we've still got a qualifying session coming after this. We've got a longer version of the race coming after this. This is just an 11-lap race for a few extra bonus points, for a bit of bragging rights. But if you are hoping to utilize those bonus points to overthrow Ferrari, well, things have not gone as planned. We've got a Ferrari 1-2 at the front. That's the constructors leaders as well as the drivers championship P1 and P2. So this may go down to the wire. This may go down to the final round. Of course, after this is round 10. Round 11 we head off to Austria. And then we have the finale at Silverstone. Levy, fastest lap of the race. Maybe in P2 for now. Hey Citizen, good to have you back. That looks like it's going to be full wets for the duration of the race, unless the rain were to lighten up very quickly and the track were to change, but I don't see that scenario happening. Just 11 laps in this race. I think the drivers would probably stay out on track rather than pit if it was just a lap or two to go where the track rather changed. But I just don't think it's going to. Conditions do look pretty heavy. The cars are sliding around. There's still a lot of spray, a lot of standing water. But of course, what this means for the qualifying after this, or the feature race that comes later, we don't know. Those could all be dry. This could be the one and only wet session we see this evening. But the Ferraris so far showing that they can be quick in the dry and they can be just as quick in the wet. Dan Ritfeldt having a little race of his own. He's in P3. Then we've got Rota. He'd love to be having a little race of his own, but he's being chased very closely by Nick Gishen. You can almost not see the Williams behind him. That's how close he is. Of course, no DRS available in the rain. So you have to go back. What you do have is some battery, and the rest you have to go back to the classic racing pass using slipstream down the straight. That's all you have. DRS not available in the rain. Everybody doing really well up until this point. Of course, started with 14 drivers. We still have 14 drivers. In these conditions, that can be surprising. Will, he has made up another position, was in P8, now up into P7. You have to get a few more of these bonus points. You'll see 3 cars just up the road from him. Is that 2 or is it 3? It is indeed 3 cars up the road from him. And you'll know in these conditions, anything can happen. Those 3 run into each other, having a little bit too much fun. He goes up from P7 to P4 in no time. So, Will, for now, keeping his distance from those 3. For how much longer? Because Nick Gishin is looking to catch up to Dan Rietveld, get himself up onto the podium. But as far as the 2 Ferraris go, I think it may be a step too far. Shane leads the way, 2.3 seconds down to his teammate now. Then Levy has a 4.1 second lead on Dan Rietveld, so the 3 podium sitters separated by 5 seconds in just 6 laps. Then Nick Gishin, P4. He's got drivers behind him, Rota, Panda, and Will at the rear of that battle. All looking to get past him, all want his P4. But he's going to defend that P4 for everything that he has in him. Of course, defending does become, I wouldn't say easier, I'd just say a little bit more possible in the rain. If those drivers behind you lose the advantage of DRS, they don't get that boost once or twice a lap, depending on what track you're at. Have to rely on just their battery, and of course you have that battery too, so if you're both using it on the straights, saving it in the corners, it becomes very, very difficult. If you get past the guy ahead, you don't have any sort of advantage, you don't have any sort of boost. Of course, in a DRS battle in the dry, car behind would get a advantage, car in front would not get DRS, get a disadvantage. In the rain, both drivers have ERS, so unless you're able to manage that battery amazingly better than your opponent, really all you have left is slipstream down a straight or be close enough behind to capitalize on any mistakes. Shane from Levy, Ferrari 1-2, Dan Rietveld, Nick Gishin P4, Rota P5, Panda P6, Will still in P7, hasn't been able to make up any more ground. I think those 3 cars ahead of him are a little bit further up the road than they were when we last checked on him. J-Boy picking up the final point in the sprint race, but that's not confirmed just yet. Secret still very close behind him in the Red Bull. The only Red Bull here this evening. So you'd love to have that Red Bull in the points for both races. Try and make up for not having a teammate here this evening. Shane going quicker and quicker. Either the track is getting quicker or he's getting more and more confident. That gap now between the 2 Ferraris, 4.2 seconds. So both drivers quick. But in the rain, it seems to be clear who has the advantage. Rota P5, Panda P6, following the RB closely. It's difficult in the rain. You want to apply the pressure, you want to force a mistake from the driver ahead of you, but while you're doing all that, you need to concentrate on not spinning yourself. Of course, qualifying was completely dry. I had no warning about the weather. I was shocked when we saw the pit lane. But now I have to ask, how does this affect the rest of the evening? Are we going to have conditions like this in the next qualifying session? Are we going to have conditions like this in the feature race? I have a caution out on circuit. I'm looking towards the track map to see what that was. I think it was a Williams. Let's just try and get confirmation of that. No, it's not. It's an Alpine. Fortunately, too many blue dots on the screen for me to be able to identify. That car is still at a halt. And well, I'm not sure what happened there. We saw we didn't get to see the incident, but when we did go to Kev, the car was sitting stationary. Didn't appear to be trying to get that car going, and he has since been disqualified. So we're down to 13 runners. I believe that looked like it was far enough off the circuit not to trigger any sort of safety car, or we're just too late into the race to trigger a safety car. It's lap 9 of 11. Shane leads 5 seconds, so the gap continues to grow. Then it's Levy, then Dan Ritfeld, a further 5.5 seconds adrift from the second Ferrari. 10 seconds covering the podium sitters. Then Nick Gishin P4, Rota P5, Panda P6, Will still in P7, and J-Boy, that final point. But he's by no means comfortable holding on to that final point. There's a Mercedes behind him who would very much like that point, but unfortunately for Boinkies, this is not something I say often, he's the only man in the penalties column. Usually, he's the only man not in the penalties column. So hopefully he gets that penalty in the sprint race and gets no more in the feature race. Hopefully that one wakes him up. Gotta live up to your name, Boinkies. I think you started getting penalties ever since I mentioned the fact that you don't get penalties. I've seen you get penalties 2 or 3 times in recent races. Catalunya, I don't think, should be one of the circuits where we have too many issues with penalties. Usually if we are at a circuit that has lots of issues with penalties, the sprint race will show signs of it. Just have the one driver with a penalty, so I don't think that's going to be the case. Stoffel has come into the pits. He's put on a set of intermediate tyres. I have to imagine that Haas had some sort of damage. Don't think he came in just to throw on a set of inters. He is currently outside of the points. Shane going quicker, 25.3. I think this is the track maybe just improving. Still a lot of spray. But at the start of the session, a lot more standing water and that track appeared a lot darker. Going on board with the second Ferrari of Levy. See the raindrops, they're still there, but they have definitely reduced since the start of the race. Of course, worst case scenario, and I've commentated on only one of these ever, if you'll believe it or not, in all the streams I've ever done. You could get a qualifying session where only the last bit of qualifying the weather is any good. So what happens is you get a very, very quiet race circuit. Everybody's waiting for the track to dry up. Luckily that's not something we see a lot of, but of course we do have rain followed by qualifying. This rain does go over into qualifying. Could affect how they start in that feature race. Shane takes the victory. Levy goes over the line to cement a Ferrari 1 and 2 in the sprint race. That's how you want to start the evening on a night like this. So many points on the table. Dan Redfeld P3, then Nick Gishin P4. We're waiting for Rota, he's come over the line, as has Panda, then Will, he holds on to P7. Boinkies was really close at the end. So Boinkies did get by, but unfortunately that penalty cancelled out all his hard work. J-Boy goes back up into the points for P8. No more penalties to worry about after that. We're just going to wait for those official results. But that was your sprint race. That's Stoffel still coming over the line. That was the only man on the intermediate tyre, and he did get the fastest lap at the end. So the intermediate tyre is the right tyre right now. Unfortunately, there's no more laps. And just Fuster coming over the line in P13. Of course, the driver that got disqualified from the sprint race will be able to return, will be able to drive in quali and the feature race. Let's just get through these results real quick. Remember, only the top 8 get points. It's Shane in P1, then his teammate Lebby P2. They're followed by Dan Redfeld, Nick Gishin, Rota, Panda, Will and J-Boy. Those are your top 8. Then Boinkies, no points tonight. Secret P10, Zero to Cool 11, Stoffel 12, Fuster 13. And the one retirement, should I rather say disqualification, went the way of the Alpine of Kev. After the excitement of the sprint race, we're back in qualifying format. Of course, short qualifying, 18 minutes for all of these cars to get around the circuit, set their best laps. Will we see lap times faster than what we saw in the sprint quali? Does anybody have a little bit more, something they haven't quite been showing up until this point? Holding it until the very last minute, surprising you in the qualifying? Does somebody have something for the Ferraris? Will getting out on track. He's going to be the first man out on track. I think he was the first or second man out on track in sprint quali. So that's how he likes to get things done. He wants to use the entire session. Wants to use it all. You know, if you make a mistake on that first run, things don't go according to plan, you might even come into a situation where you just invalidate the lap just by a couple of centimeters over the line. That means that whole run, it goes in the bin. You got to forget about it. You got to get in the pits, put on a fresh set and go out again. And sometimes if you spend too much time daydreaming in the pits, all of a sudden you find out that these 18 minutes go by a lot quicker than you thought. Just the two cars out on track, the one we're looking at, which is Will. The other one is Boinkies. He was the only man to pick up a penalty in that sprint race. Hopefully for the feature race, he'll be the only man not to pick up a penalty. A reverse of the cards, so to speak. A few more drivers now getting out on track. Will, the only one on a quick lap. Bring up some data on your screen. You can have a look, a little better idea of who's doing what. Surprisingly, two of the drivers, they've gone out on the medium tyre. Not expected in qualifying. Usually drivers will use the very best tyre available to them because they're trying to set the very best lap possible. But of course the Ferraris, they're very quick. They know they're very quick. And they know they don't have to set pole position with this first run. So what they're going to do, they're going to have a run on the mediums, and then later on in the session they'll have their go on the softs, hopefully saving a set of softs as an extra option when it comes to the race. Done the whole lap with Will, because this is going to be the first time lap of the evening. He's about to go over the line, does he? No, he doesn't. He has a bit of a weave, so no lap time. I wonder if that was invalidated. He just backed out of that, and I wonder if he was listening, because he let us know he backed out of that. So this is Shane, winner of the sprint race, leader of the Drivers' Championship. So that was a 10-point lead. I think that's going to be an 11-point lead now. He's got the one extra point in the sprint race over his teammate. That is his nearest title contender. While Ferrari look like they've got the Constructors' Championship all sewn up. Like I mentioned a little earlier, Drivers' Championship, still a way to go. Of course, these results will not include the sprint race results. These are the results prior to that sprint race. So there will be a few differences here and there, but Shane leads the championship by the 10 points. Panda a further 10 points back, and then Wezo in P4. I think those are the drivers that can still mathematically pull this off, but it would take a lot of misfortune on the side of the Ferraris to make that happen. Boinky's quickest man in the field so far. Shane went over the line in P2 with a 1:16.9. I don't think that's a representative lap. I know it's the mediums, but surely the mediums are a little quicker than that. Just the 2 lap times on our screens to speak of. This is Will. Is he depleting his battery? Is he pushing? Seems to be depleting his battery, but he doesn't have much battery left, and he's got a lot of lap to go. I don't think this is going to be the absolute ultimate from Will. Because it tells in that battery, you get to see when the drivers are pushing, when they're not really pushing. I have the telemetry on for the qualifying. Of course, I switch it off for the race. Don't want to get accused of working as a race engineer for certain drivers. Somebody joked about that the other day, but I'm not quite sure if it was a joke or an accusation. I'm nobody's engineer, just the commentator. No conspiracies here. Had a retirement. I believe that's Boinky's. The Mercedes that was in P3 had a disappointing sprint race. He got up to P8 and then lost it because of his penalty. And now he's retired very, very early on in the feature. Why am I saying feature race? It's qualifying, but he's retired. He's not going to be able to improve. It's a 13.1. It's a really good lap time, but we saw 13.1s that went all the way down to P8, I think, in the sprint race. I still have the question, are we going to see lap times quicker in Q1 than we saw in the sprint race? So far, don't believe so. No, that's a 12.9. That's the best. I think Panda wasn't able to get into the 12s in the sprint race, so he has been able to find that little bit extra. It's almost like you get a double shot at qualifying. Get that 12 minutes for the sprint race. If they made any mistakes, they had anything they wanted to do slightly differently, they can do it in this session. Of course, now Levy goes up into provisional pole. It's a 12.4, quickest lap we've seen in this session. How much further down can it go? Could we possibly? Am I asking for too much? Is an 11 possible? Is an 11 on the cards around the Circuit de Catalunya? Crazy would that be? Still 9.5 minutes remaining in the session, so expect these lap times to still come down. This is Rota in P6, Kev P7, Will P8. That's round about the position he ran in the sprint race as well. Fuster was the last man over the line in the sprint race. He'll be hoping for a better feature race. Of course, we didn't see any stoppages in the sprint race. No safety cars, no virtual safety cars. In the feature race, it's going to be a much longer race. Mistakes do creep in. I've seen mistakes by good drivers on these sprint nights. Just a little bit longer than usual. Sometimes towards the latter stages of that feature race, concentration just starts to slip. You start to feel the extra time. Of course, if that little bit of extra time is upsetting you, don't think 100% race would be a good idea. Of course, we've also seen times in the past where we get 4 or 5 safety cars and the stream is extended by 20 to 30 minutes. So, depending how clean the race is, will we see stoppages? Didn't see any in the sprint race. Also didn't have any DNFs in the sprint race. We did have a DSQ. That was for Kev, the man currently in P9. About half the drivers out on track, the other half in the pits. It's a good time to be out on circuit, not too busy. You're able to have the whole race circuit to yourself. This time I just need to mute myself on purpose. I'll be back in 2 minutes. My phone is going insane. And we're back. Of course, I have a caution there in Sector 2 and Sector 3. Now just Sector 3. I think that's somebody moving on the racetrack a little too slowly. We saw dominance from the Ferraris in the sprint race. Of course, they didn't start 1-2. Levy actually started in P3 and was able to steal P2 into turn 1 and never gave it back up. If the rest of the field saw what the Ferraris were capable of in that sprint race, they'll know how important it is not to let them start on the front row and disappear off into the distance, because that's exactly what they'll do. Of course, the Ferraris will be only working as a team to an extent. Of course, we have a situation in the championship where the two main contenders are in the same car. Things do get very, very tricky when you've got two drivers fighting it out for the championship within the same team. That is literally an Alain Prost, Ayrton Senna situation. Never really ends well. Of course, the team that decided on that disastrous team up of Prost and Senna has just accelerated their rivalry even more. That was McLaren. And a few years later, quite a few years later, they didn't learn their lesson. They signed up Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. And we all know that, well, that didn't go very well either. Will, one of the only men out on track. I think Kev, Zerotcool and J-Boy also on outlaps, as is Shane and Secret. Now the track getting busy, but the only man on a timed quick lap is this one here. This is Will. Current best lap is a 13.0. I think this is his second run, is it? Doesn't seem to be depleting the battery, so this is either an in lap or an out lap. He's already done a lap on those tires, so it might be an in lap. He's gone up into P6, a little bit higher than where he finished in the sprint race, so that'll already be an improvement for him. Nick Gishin holding on to that provisional pole for now and not letting it go. It's a 112.1. I said we might see an 11, and if somebody wants to take Nick Gishin off pole position, they might have to do just that. They might have to get into the 111s. What an impressive lap time it would be. Nick Gishin's not going to just sit around and find out. He's out there too. He's going to try and defend that lap. Levy has stayed in the pits. Of course, there is still time, but he's cutting things a little close. Shane around the final corner. He's about to start his final quick lap of the evening. There's only going to be enough time for one more. Just want to have a look. Where is Levy? He's still in the pits. Shane into turn 1, then turn 2. I think he got all of the apex on that second corner. But he's not discharging the battery. Thought this was a quick lap. It's obviously not. The battery not discharging. Levy is now out of the pits. So I wonder if the Ferraris are looking to do the spectacular right at the end. Who knows? We'll soon find out. And Nick Gishin, was he looking for an improvement? Was that a timed lap? If that was a timed lap, I think his session has just come to an end. Does he still have something more? If he still has fuel and he can charge up that battery, there's enough time left in the lap to charge up that battery, get around, do one more lap. The crucial thing is, if he was running on absolute fumes already, he might not have the extra fuel to get around. Nick Gishin, quickest man in the field with a 112. So that's a 112.3. Read that wrong. Then Levy, P2, then Shane, P3. The two Ferraris very close together, just half a tenth, just over half a tenth, about 600ths of a second. It's Nick Gishin, Levy, then Shane, then Dan Ritfeldt, then Panda in P5, Will P6, he's out on track, as is Secret in P7, Stoffel P8. Boinkies, he's slipped down all the way down to P9 since that retirement. I said the 113 was a good lap, but after all this time, it's not such a good lap. Just good enough for P9, Zerotcool just behind him, also 13.1, then Rota 13.2, as well as Kev on a 13.2. All of those cars out on track looking for improvements, so Boinkies could find himself even further down the field. depending on the results of the action over the next few seconds. Just 10 seconds remain in the session. If you have already passed the checkered flag, that means you will get to finish your lap. You don't get to see it because there's a caution. But Levy leaving it as late as can be. I think that's it. Levy spent a little bit too much time in the grass. He's not going to be able to expect any sort of an improvement. Right with Shane, and he's not going to be able to improve either. Gets the checkered flag, 112.5. I think both Ferraris will be a little bit frustrated. They had more than that. Didn't see them in the sprint race, but look at that. The two horses are definitely up there. They're in P3 and 4. It's going to be a full horse second row. And 4 Ferrari powered cars in the top 5. Just a reminder, the only team I believe mathematically that could take this away is Sauber, maybe Haas, but that would require probably the worst end to a championship for a team that I've ever seen. Ferrari would probably have to retire from the next 3 events, including this one. I just don't see that happening. If they're just able to keep the cars on track today, get a good result, get both cars on the podium, then they've confirmed that constructors. Of course, it's difficult to drive as a team when you're competing for that one and only trophy at the end of the season. We're going to have to get through these results quickly because I've already got a timer. Nick Gish, and he's going to start from pole position, and he's going to be joined by Levy on the front row. Then we've got Panda P3, Stoffel P4, Shane all the way down in P5. He started on pole position for the sprint race. Then Kev P6, Dan Ritfeld, your driver of the day from the sprint race, P7. Then Will P8, followed by Secret, Rota, Boinkies, Zero to Cool, J-Boy, and Fuster. And for the 4th and final time this evening, we look down at an empty pit lane. Of course, this is the last opportunity for the drivers to make any changes that they can. Of course, a lot of the changes are restricted. Those of you who didn't know, some action at Monza prior to the Monza weekend even beginning, the safety car had a crash. So even before the weekend gets underway, one Aston Martin's already been in the tyres. Same as the sprint race, we'll get the dual green lights. Drivers will have an opportunity to do a formation lap, and this will be a much more comfortable formation lap for them than they had in that sprint race. Of course, it was pouring down at that stage. This time they'll actually be able to utilize this lap to get brake temperature, tire temperature, maybe get a little bit of knowledge of what this car feels like with a full fuel tank. Preparations. Remember, the preparations continue right down to the formation lap. Doesn't end in qualifying. How you prepare those tires, how you prepare those brakes, it could be the crucial factor between you losing a position into turn 1 or holding on to a position in turn 1. A lot of people don't take the formation lap too seriously. They just want to get on with it. It does make a difference if you've got that extra tire temperature. Quick look at the tires. Nobody starting on the soft compound, not a sign of the soft tyres in the field. It's obviously not a popular compound. Drivers not believing it's going to go very far. Majority of the field starting on the medium compound. That includes both Ferraris. Just one of the Haas drivers on the medium compound. So Haas have gone with a split strategy. One starting on the medium, one starting on the hard. The Ferraris have gone for identical strategies, as have the Alpines in 6 and 7, both on the mediums. Just the one Aston Martin, also mediums, then Rota on the hards, and J-Boy at the rear of the field also going on the hards. You can hear the red lights, can't see them unfortunately. I can tell you there's 5 of them, and I can tell you they've disappeared. And so have the drivers. Look at that, they're driving up the hill and we've got a terrible camera angle. There we go, a little better. Into turn 1, there's carbon fiber flying in the background. Doesn't seem like anyone's off the circuit, but somebody definitely had a nudge. And it had to be a pretty hard nudge. Just off the starting line, see carbon fiber flying off the circuit towards the main grandstand. Somebody in the field, somebody here has already got damage early on. If you see anybody falling down the field, there's the culprit. Or rather, is he the victim? Nick Gishin leads the way, but for how much longer? The Haas is challenging, or is he? I don't know what happened there. A little bit of internet insanity. Haas just switches positions on track. Not quite sure what happened, but now it's Nick Gishin from Shane, so the field continuing to change. So difficult to keep our eyes on what's going on. Panda goes back up into P2. Now Shane goes up into P2. So everybody trading places. We had 2 Haas, 2 Ferraris starting up in the top 5. One of those Haas's has since fallen off. That is Stoffel. He's in P7. As for the other 3, Levy, Panda, Shane, they're in P2, P3, P4. And Nick Gishin leads the race. But for how much longer? Just a tenth of a second was the gap. There will be nothing into turn 1 for now. Of course, Shane would love to attack Nick Gishin, but he also has to worry about Panda just behind him. And if he backs up Panda too much, he could run Panda into his own teammate. Lots of action at the start of the race. Question is, when do you go? Well, there we go. Shane didn't have to work too hard, because I think that was a mistake from Nick Gishin. Just ran wide. Shane saw it early enough, went up the inside, took the lead of the race. And Nick Gishin now demoted down to P2, and he's soon going to start coming under pressure from the driver just behind him. That's Panda in the Haas. Panda under pressure himself from Levy, and Levy just ahead of Dan Rittveld. We have Kev, P6, that was the man that got the DSQ in the sprint race, so he'll be looking to get on with it. He'll be looking to get a good result in the feature race, a handful of points. Rota P7, Stoffel P8, Will P9, so he slipped down the order from where he started. Shane gets the fastest lap briefly, then it's taken away by Dan Rittveld. That's the driver down in P5. He was the driver of the day, if you'll remember, in the sprint race not so long ago. Of course, all drivers, top 3 drivers, can be the top 3 from the sprint, can be the top 3 from the feature, and the drivers of the day. Doesn't matter if you were sprint race driver of the day or feature race driver of the day. You're all invited to the NFR cool down room after the race. Can then bring you into the comms box and can tell us a little bit about your race. If there were any dramas in your race that we had no idea about on screen. Well, did I get a really bad camera angle, or oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. We've had a collision at the back. I think I saw Shane with no wing. And I was trying to get a good camera angle of Shane with no wing, and then Shane went off in the background. He hit that wall pretty hard. Hopefully the rear wing is intact. Of course, even the slightest damage to that rear wing can effectively end your race. So that Ferrari's gone down to P11. Don't worry about what I just said. That does not end your race. If you come into the pits, there's nothing wrong with that rear wing. You get back out there. Still so much can happen in such a long race. Safety cars, bringing you back into the equation. He's been in the pits for quite some time. Obviously that's a wing change. What set of tyres is he going to go on to? He's going on to a set of hards. Doubt he's going to be able to finish the race on those set of hards. He'd have to do something like 29 laps. So there will be another pit stop. He'll be hoping for a safety car. We've got a caution in sector 3, and he said he'd be hoping for a safety car, and well. Either that's a commentator's curse, or I don't know what that was. As I said it, you could count to 3, and it happened. We are under the first safety car of the evening. Of course, we went through a full sprint race, a very wet and dangerous and difficult to drive in sprint race, may I add, with no safety cars, no virtual safety cars, no breakages in the race of any kind. As for the feature race, we were only able to get as far as lap 4 before we got our first safety car. Well, Shane had to do that pit stop plus a wing change. So he would have come out quite far behind the field, probably 25 to 30 seconds behind the field. So he'll be grateful for this safety car. He's still going to be in last place, but it has closed the field. So he'll be able to rely on his overtaking to bring him back into this race. And as for the championship, he needs to get as high up the order as he can, because his main championship contender leads this race, and he might find himself in a position where even if he does make all the overtakes he needs to make and gets up into P2, he might find that Levy is too far away at that stage. Just don't count out the Williams of Nick Gishen. He was also very, very quick at the start. So many fast drivers here. Unfortunately, mistakes creep in, and the quickest don't always get to be at the front. Sometimes they make mistakes, and when they make those mistakes, it causes them to start, or rather drive, very far out of position than what they're used to. This can be sometimes a tricky situation, especially for the quick drivers. Quick drivers, they're used to driving other quick drivers at the front. When you find yourself in a situation like this, behind the safety car, you've got the whole queue, you need to overtake the whole field if you're going to get back to the front. And you're going to be coming past a lot of drivers that you may not be used to driving against. Over time, you get to know your competitors, you know which drivers you can comfortably go wheel to wheel with and they will respect the space. You know which drivers you probably shouldn't go wheel to wheel with, because they'll max you. Let's just say that. They'll max you. So when you're driving out of position, you find yourself amongst drivers you probably haven't spent that much time driving with. You might find yourself in a spot of bother, going wheel to wheel with the wrong driver. Of course, all the leagues we broadcast on this channel, DRS, the one you're looking at, SKR on Sundays, and the soon to be returning SAFRL, don't have to worry really about dirty driving. They're all clean drivers, they're all good drivers, they're all quick drivers. In all the leagues represented on this channel. But even if you are a very clean, very fast driver, sometimes you're just a little bit more defensive than one would expect. Very, very quiet night in the comments section. Where are you guys? And lady, of course we have Liesel in the comments section. Always good to have you here. And for those of you who are moaning about the quality of the stream, I have officially ordered a new capture card. It should improve the quality of the stream. Unfortunately now I need a new mic. Levy gets us back underway. The safety car comes in and Levy leads the restart. It's going to lead the way from Dan Ritfeld and Kev. So the two Alpines have come very strongly into this race. Remember, they had both Ferraris, they had both Haas ahead of them at the start of the race. Now they only have the one Ferrari ahead of them. So the two Alpines having a fantastic evening so far. If the race were to end right now, they would be very pleased. Stoffel down in P4. He's the top performing Haas. Of course, we lost the other Haas. Very disappointing. It looked like a strong race on the cards for Haas. One Ferrari at the front, one Ferrari at the rear with a lot of work to do. Dan Ritfeld, Kev, the two Alpines going strong. Stoffel P4, he wants to get himself onto that podium. Will P5, I think it's the highest he's ran this evening so far. He'll be happy with that position. He did not, well, nobody did with the exception of Shane, utilize the safety car to make a pit stop. Of course, the safety car was a little bit too early. I think if somebody had started on softs, they might have utilized that safety car to get rid of them. But for anyone on the medium or hard, that safety car came way too early for you to come into the pits. DRS is enabled. Of course, one lap after the safety car comes in, DRS comes back into play. Makes overtaking a lot more possible. Some people don't like the DRS, but I assure you 90% of the passes we see today are because of DRS. Take DRS away and every race would be Monaco. Will P5 followed by Boinky's P6. Will's in P5, but he's going to have to do a lot of work to hold on to P5. He's got two cars ahead of him. Also quite aggressive. SAFRL has taken P3 away from that second Alpine. With all this battling here, P3, 4, 5, 6, all of these drivers so close together. Hopefully don't get any sort of incident at the front and a domino effect. We've seen that before. So Panda the only DNF of the evening so far. Of course, in the sprint race we had a disqualification. So that's the only DNF we've seen this evening. Welcome to Pantry Star. Good to have you here. Of course, if you're in the comment section and you haven't said hello and I haven't mentioned your name, well, I haven't mentioned your name, so let me know you're here. So say hello in the comment section, let me know you're here, let me know who you think is going to go on to win this race. Or give me a podium prediction. Of course, also if it's your first visit to the channel, remember to subscribe to the channel. Get this racing every single Thursday night, usually at 7:30. We got started a little early tonight because of the sprint race. Usually we get going at 7:30 on a Thursday night. That is DRS. And then of course SKR on Sunday. And next week SAFRL will return, I believe. 0 to cool at the rear of the field in the Williams. Then Rota P12, Fuster 11, J-Boy final driver in the points. Then Secret P9 and Shane. Well, he's made up a few positions, hasn't he? Remember, disastrous pit stop, wing change, came out far behind, but a few seconds later the safety car came out. He was able to catch up to the queue. He said he was going to have to do a whole lot of overtaking. He's already done a whole lot of overtaking. He's gone from P13 to P8 in absolutely no time, but now it's going to get a little bit more difficult because the drivers ahead of him, they're quick. They're real quick. No slow drivers there ahead of him at this stage in the race. So it's going to have to be push, push, push on the limits And when you're on the limits, especially around here around Catalonia, some of these curbs can bite. You go over the wrong curb and you're done for. 0 to cool. It's a 3-second time penalty. Of course, we just saw the 1 time penalty in the sprint race. That was for boinkies. We've almost done sprint race distance. Of course, the sprint race was 11 laps. Levy about to go over the line to start the 11th lap. Sprint race just a third of the distance of a feature race, so we still have 22 laps to go in this race for a total of 33. Shane has done the fastest lap of the race down in P8, so he's going to be looking to catch up to the cars ahead of him, make even more overtakes. He needs to be as close to his teammate as possible. Preferably he'd like to beat his teammate, but if that option is not on the cards, he needs to be as high up the field as he can. Pantry Star just saying that Shane is on the best tyres. In case you missed the start of the race, I think we got to lap 4 and we got a safety car. Of course, Shane went to the rear of the field. He had an incident, lost a lot of wing, then hit another barrier. Was quite lucky not to retire from the race. These cars can be strong when they want to be. He had to go into the pits, change a wing, came out very far behind. Luckily for him, a safety car came out shortly thereafter. Caught up to the queue and he's done the right overtakes. He's done 7 laps on the hard. The medium runners, they've already done 11 laps. I'm not sure they've totally passed their peak, but they'll be starting to get into that realm. And when that happens, the track will come to the drivers on the hard compound. And of course, Shane's hard compound, they're going to be a little bit fresher than the hard compounds around him. We have another caution flashing on our screens. We quickly look to the track. It's a virtual safety car. Of course, the game has tricked us in the past, saying virtual safety car, then we get a full safety car, but no evidence of any yellow dots on the track map, so I don't think it will be just the virtual safety car. That's all it will be. And drivers will just have to drive within a certain delta, keep a certain average speed. It's designed that way just to neutralize the race, get everybody to slow down, but not necessarily change the order. Of course, if you're sleeping in that delta, you could lose time under safety car. And if you're very much on the edge, you could gain a lot of time under virtual safety car. But when doing the latter, there's always the risk of going a little bit over the edge and finding yourself with a drive-through. Very long virtual safety car. And we're back underway. There we go. I say it's a long safety car and the game just goes, haha. No, it's not. Very nice game playing, literally game playing games with me. Retired from the session. Rota retires from the session. We've got another caution. That's all it is. I think that's all it is. Just a yellow flag in sector 3 for that second retirement of the race. We went a long time sprint race, no retirements, just a disqualification. That's why I'm not counting it. But now, as we start approaching the middle distance of the race, the 50% distance of the 50% distance race. Drivers starting to make mistakes. The first one was Panda. He's usually in the comment section. We haven't seen him this evening just yet. Love to have him here in the comment section so he can tell me a little bit about what happened. If it was a game issue, well, that's the one good thing about not having physical games anymore. You can't throw them across the room. Though you could throw the PlayStation across the room, but I highly recommend you do not do that. In fact, you wouldn't have to throw it across the room, you just have to probably drop it off the table and it would be done for. Levy out front, Stoffel P2, and will you look at that? Just a few laps ago, just a few minutes ago, Shane would have thought, I've dropped it, I've choked, I've missed out on an opportunity to score points, and I've just handed my teammate an amazing opportunity. But look at the work he's done. He's come up from P13. There was the one retirement. It would have helped him gain a position. The rest, he's come up through the field. Obviously, two drivers made pit stops, Kev and Nick Geshen. That would have bolstered it, but we've got a Ferrari 1-2. Remember, Shane utilised that safety car on lap 4, so his incident would have been around lap 3. So in the space of 12 laps, he's been able to recover his race. That's why I say, don't let your head drop if you have an incident early on in the race. Still so much can happen, so much is unwritten. You simply do not know what is coming next. Ferrari 1-2 for the time being. Those Ferraris aren't anywhere near each other. 4.8 seconds between the two. That's almost the gap we saw between the two in the sprint race, except the orders were reversed. Of course, much more important to be the man in P1 in the feature race than it is in the sprint race. Of course, finish in P1 in the sprint race, the man in P2 really only gets 1 point less than you. 8 points for the win, 7 points for P2. In the feature race, that is much different. Running on the official F1 points, 25 points for a victory, just the 18 for P2, so a much bigger difference, 7 points. So Shane would have got the 1 point advantage in the sprint race, and then lose 7 in the feature race. Gap was 10 points. Things are just getting closer and closer, and the rounds are getting less and less. We're running out of time for a championship that looks like it could have gone on another 10 rounds. Shane from Stoffel from Boinkies. Levy, he's come into the pits for a fresh set of hards. And before I say it, I just want to get confirmation there's a penalty next to his name. I'm hoping, for his sake, it's a track penalty, a 3-second penalty. It is, it's just a 3-second penalty. Whenever you see that penalty and a driver has recently been into the pits, you always worry if it's the big one. Of course, sprinting. We had a sprint race and now I got the sprint word in my head. Of course, speeding in the pit lane, I suppose you could call it sprinting in the pit lane, will cost you a 10-second penalty that will be added on at your next pit stop, or at the end of the race if you do not make another pit stop. Shane leads the way, 1.7 seconds from Stoffel, so not a big gap. Then Boinky's P3, J-Boy P4, Secret P5. Then we have Levy in P6, but he's the first of the cars to have made a pit stop. From what I can work out here on screen, I think he is the provisional leader of the race by, say, approximately between 4 and 5 seconds. Shane has stayed out longer. Of course, he was also on the set of hards, but that's not how he started. He's on a set of hards. He started on the medium. So he's going to be a little out of sync. Might have to make a pit stop right at the end, or those hard tires are going to be hanging on by a thread at the end. We shall see. I've actually got Pantry Star in the comment section, so we don't have to wait and see. We can just ask Pantry Star. He knows this stuff. Pantry Star, hard set of tires. How many laps around Catalunya? What do you say would be a maximum before the tyre starts to degrade harshly, or at least your lap time starts to degrade harshly? Haven't even mentioned it because I didn't want to. But we are under our second safety car of the evening. This time it's for the third retirement. So the first retirement of the evening triggered a safety car. The second one did not. Gave us a little bit of reprieve. As for the third DNF of the night, it's given us yet another safety car. What will drivers do? Will some of them come into the pits? Will some of them change things around? Shane will probably come into the pits. Let's have a look. Where is your leader? Pantry Star saying Shane has scored with this one. Does he come into the pits? Yes, he does. Shane comes into the pits, and he's going to get the advantage now, because Levy's going to have to be going around a lot slower than he would like to. I said Levy would be the provisional leader of the race by approximately 5 seconds. Well, that's not going to count for anything anymore, because the safety car is going to cancel out all those gaps. Shane does go on to the medium, as Pantry Star predicts a few seconds earlier. And look at that. I said Levy was the provisional leader before all 5 seconds. But as a result of Shane making the pit stop under that safety car, I said Levy wouldn't be able to go around as quickly as he'd like. Ooh, and Shane almost overtook the safety car. That was pretty close. Things can go very wrong there. Sometimes it tells you to go past, and other times it's like, hey, what are you doing? Come back. So Shane luckily stopped in time. Sometimes that timer comes down quicker than you think, and disqualification. So now we just have to wait for everybody to compress. We have to wait for the field to come back together, form a train. That may take some time. Drivers in the lead are heading off into Sector 2. Drivers at the rear are leaving Sector 2 on the previous lap. So it may take a little bit of another lap and a half at least for everybody to catch up. Then we're going to have a restart, hopefully for the final time this evening. Two Ferraris that started on the same strategy. One's been at the front for a majority of the race. The other one, well, he's been just about everywhere. Made the first mistake where he lost the wing. Then while trying to recover, trying to gain some momentum, I think he got hit by another car, or he just left the track, got a tyre full of grass. We didn't quite see what happened. It looked like he was just trying to regain some momentum after the initial wing damage. It turned into something much more. He left the racetrack, hit the wall. He was able to continue, get to the pits. First safety car saved his race. Second safety car has made it advantage Shane. And to quote the one and only Murray Walker, the original voice of Formula One, I believe the quote was, "In Formula One, anything can happen, and it usually does." Still have a McLaren at the rear of the field, but I think he should be able to catch up by the end of the lap. So this should be the last lap behind the safety car before we get going once again. The Ferraris in 1 and 2, they'll be eager to get going. Those are also your championship sitters, P1 and 2. Of course, 4 drivers still with a mathematical chance. I think really 3 of them are in it at the moment. We are missing the one Salva, that is Wezo. Of course, that's the man in P4, so I think it's clear to say that he's no longer a contender for the championship. Shane, Levy and Panda, the three main drivers for the championship, and as you can see, Panda is no longer in the race. Race control says safety car is in this lap. It was a pretty late call in the penultimate corner, but Shane will quickly have to adjust to being the virtual safety car for the next couple of 100 meters. He decides when to go, and there can be no overtaking till that start finish line. He weaves, he makes his teammate guess, and then he goes. P1, P2 under pressure though. Haas very close behind. You'll want to repay the favor. Take a position from Levy. And there's just no space. Levy has to go off the circuit. And the Haas is not letting up. He's going to fight for that P2 while he can. He doesn't want the Ferrari to get too far up the road. They saw what happened in the sprint race. They don't want to let it happen in the feature race. Stay on the tail of the Ferrari. Apply all the pressure that you can. Sometimes when you can't quite pass somebody on pace, that's the next best option. Apply pressure, apply pressure, apply pressure, and when the mistake comes, capitalize. Saying Dan Ritfeld picked up a penalty. That is information from Bantry Star, drive-through penalty, so that's why he's down in P8. Actually, both Alpines were in a much stronger position not so long ago, looking at a double podium. Now they're down in 7 and 8. DRS is enabled, because we've had one lap since the restart. And the Haas having another go, and this time he gets it right before he gets to the corner. And a mistake by Levy. If that was in any other point in the race, he might have got away with it with just losing one position, but because it's so soon after a safety car, the cars are still so close together. Luckily not a fatal mistake, not one that takes him out of the race, not one that gives him any damage, but he did spend some time on the grass, and that allowed 2-3 cars to get by him. So no longer a Ferrari 1-2, now a Ferrari 1-5. And the driver in P2 in the championship, he's going to have to claw his way up this field. Does not want the other Ferrari driver to gain any more of an advantage than he already has. Of course, he already has that 10-point advantage. Maybe he would have been hoping to win this round. Just even things off a little. Even too much for round 11 and 12. Reminder, next week we're in the Red Bull Ring for round 11. Much shorter, quick racetrack. And then we finish things off in Silverstone. And since it's Silverstone, who knows? We might have a wet finale. Shane still leads the way out front. Then in P2 we've got Stoffel, Boinkies in P3, then J-Boy, then Levy, then Sigrid, Kevin P7, Zero to Cool P8, Dan Ritfeld P9, Will in P10, picking up that final point. Of course, we've lost 3 drivers, so just 11 remain in the field. Fuster, the only one not in the points, and also not in control of his car. He's ghosting around. So 11 on the timing sheet, only 10 in the race. Bring that car home, you will get points. But you'd like to be as high up the field as possible to gain as many points as possible. Dan Redfeld, let me know those soft tyres of Boinkies. Will they be able to get to the end? He's already done 5 laps on them. He's going to have to do another 9. I think it may be a step too far for the softs. And if he has to stop again, it's going to come down pretty far down the field, because we've had a few safety cars, so the field is still very close together at this late stage in the race. Don't have to worry too much about the penalties, just 2 drivers with penalties. Pantry Star asking for ERS, I will put it up. Just had a few people ask for me not to put it up, but we'll leave it up for a while. We want to see who's running what energy. Gives you an idea of who's got a little extra in their pocket, a little extra, and who's just holding back, saving some battery for when they need it, and they're defending down that back straight when they need it the most. Shane's out front and he's definitely not saving battery. He is pushing, as is the man in P2. Then Boinky's P3. He's got to give it everything he's got in this stint of the race. Those soft tyres will be giving him an advantage right now, but when they do fall off, he's going to find himself falling down the order. Just everybody behind him will have a superior tyre at that stage. Will picks up a 3-second time penalty. Luckily for him, I think Dan Redfeld, car behind him, also has a 3-second penalty. So those will all cancel each other out. That's it. Lebby P7, Zero to Cool P8, Will P9, Dan Redfeld P10. All 4 of those drivers in order with 3-second penalties. They're still ghosting around at the back, so just the 10 drivers in the race currently. Shane from Boinkies. Boinkies having a really strong race at this point because he's just got past Stoffel, but I think that is still the effect of these softs. And when the softs do fall off, it's not going to be having much more fun out there. He's going to have his hands full with a car that's really misbehaving. Shane out front, then Boinkies, then Stoffel. Those are your top 3. Second Ferrari looked very strong earlier on, but Lebby has fallen off. He's had some misfortunes. His teammate had misfortunes, but the safety car brought him back into the race. Lebby's misfortunes have not been fixed by any safety cars. He's got to fight this out. Does he have any damage on that Ferrari? He's down in P7. No visible damage to that Ferrari, but we did see him leave the track, lost a handful of positions. Looks like he may have lost 1 or 2 more since then. Now gets past the Alpine. Will be step 1 in his recovery drive up to P6. The race ended now would be a great result for the leader. Leader in the championship, picking up a big advantage on the night where his teammate had everything against him in the second stint of the race. Things just not going his way. Got the sprint race pretty perfect. Got the first half of the feature race pretty perfect. But it doesn't matter how long you lead a race. The only thing that matters is who's leading right at the end of the race. When people talk about the greats, they talk about how many podiums a driver has, how many race wins a driver has, how many drivers' championships a driver has. You've never heard the record for who has the most lead laps of all time. Doesn't really mean much. That's why it never gets mentioned. I have to say I have no idea who holds that record, by the way. But I think it would be fair to assume that Lewis Hamilton holds the record for the most race laps led. 8 years of Mercedes winning Constructors' Championships. Shane leads the way, Stoffel P2, then Boinkies. Then the one and only Red Bull in the field, doing a good job in P4. He's missing a teammate, needs to get the most out of this race that he can. Then we've got J-Boy in P6. All of these drivers are really quick drivers. It's just this field is so close. You can see after the last safety car, drivers haven't really spread out. Pantry Star noting that the softs are starting to drop off, are they? He's coming back from very far back. Will he have a dive at the Haas? He doesn't. I thought he would. It just wasn't close enough. And Boinkies will stay in P3, but for how much longer? Because he's got a whole bunch of angry drivers behind him, swarming left and right. It's a Ferrari versus a Red Bull. We've seen that on many occasions. Max versus Charles. Well, next year, who knows, you might have Max versus Lewis, but this time in a red car. If rumours are to be believed, in the not too distant future we might see Max in a green car. So we might see the battle reawaken between Lewis and Max, but in two very different cars this time round. All will be revealed in 2026. Will Max Verstappen stay? Will he go? Stoffel got past Boinkies as a result of those softs maybe getting past their peak, but Boinkies coming back at him. Takes the position back, and the Red Bull trying to take 2 in 1. Didn't get close enough, but he did take the 1 position. Takes the position from Stoffel, gets up onto the podium. Now Stoffel running wide. That's going to allow Levy to come at him. Levy gets past as well, and just like that, Stoffel went from challenging for P2 all the way down to P5 in a matter of corners. Levy now picks up a position, and he'll be able to challenge the Red Bull and the Mercedes ahead of him. I think he's just realized the Ferrari 1-2 is still very much on the cards. His teammate might be a little too far up the road for him to do anything about it. We saw a caution. I didn't mention it because I wanted it to go away. It has gone away. We only have 3 laps remaining in the race. So that would be a very late safety car. Would destroy anybody in the penalties column. Let's just revisit that penalties column to give us a reminder of who has penalties. Of course, Levy with a 3-second penalty, then the driver behind him, Stoffel, also a 3-second penalty. As things stand, J-Boy and Kev would jump both those drivers. Then the other 3 drivers with penalties, Dan Ritfeld, ooh, who was that? We got live on-board footage of whatever that was. Stoffel, he hasn't moved since. And I think, well, there he goes. But I think for a few moments, he was sitting there in silence, wondering what just happened. He has since retired from the session. Stoffel will take no further part in this race. Of course, if he had gone for another 2 laps, he would have still got a few points finishing within the top 10. That's no longer the case. He's retired from the race. That'll promote the McLaren into P10. Not sure if... I don't believe that car's going to get any points because he's been ghosting for a majority of the race. At least from the time we've spent on board with him. Shane leads 4.9 seconds. We said a Ferrari 1-2 was a possibility again, and now it's not just a possibility, it's a probability. 1-2 for Ferrari. And Secret in P3. top performing Alpine is Kev. His teammate was doing really well not so long ago, but Dan Ritveldt down in 7th place, 7.5 seconds adrift from the next car. He might have to just accept 7th place. Not much he's going to be able to do in just 2 laps. Shane and Lebby, 5 seconds in between them. I think that was almost the gap in the sprint race. Same order. If things were to finish just like this, means Shane would gain an extra 8 points in the championship, taking the championship lead from 10 to 18. And unfortunately for the man in 3rd place in the championship, he still had a mathematical chance of coming into this. He has since retired. That is Panda. We watched Kev go over the line there. I held my breath, but a penalty did pop up, so Kev gets a 3-second penalty for track infringements. That will definitely hurt him, because Boinky's just 2.5 seconds adrift, so he could lose out on that P5. 2 Boinkies, who's crucially stayed out of the penalties column this time round. He was the only one with the penalty in the sprint race. This is lap 33 of 33. We're almost done. I said it would be a long night, but look how time has flown. Boinkies, he was having a very strong race not so long ago, but we did say those those soft tyres would fall off. They since have fallen off. There's your evidence. He's down in P6. Luckily for him now, the next car quite far behind. Shane has gone over the line. Lebby's gone over the line. Lebby loses that P2 due to his penalty. Secret will pick it up. And we're not going to try read these results. We're going to let all the penalties come through. Let everybody come over the line. And then we will read the official results at the end. I think that was another car ghosting, was it? We're just waiting now for Zero to cool. This will be your final finisher, of course. Fuster still ghosting at the rear of the field. Don't believe that result will count. I don't know if he will get points for that. I don't believe that is the case. And that is indeed your final finisher. Folks, it's been a J-Boy driver of the day. It's been a long night. It's been a very quiet stream. DRS usually a little bit better than this, a little busier than this. Quiet stream on the night, but so glad to have all of you here. So let's just get the results for the feature race. There we go, there they are. Shane takes the victory. Secret P2, he'll be happy with that position. He didn't look too good in qualifying, but he got the result when it counted. Then Lebby P3 unfortunately lost the position due to his penalty. Then J-Boy P4, Kev P5, Boinkies P6, Dan Ritveldt P7, Will P8, and Zero to Cool P9, and the last points finisher. Of course, Fuster in P10, but that car did ghost around for the majority of the race, so I don't think he'll get any points. Then Stoffel. And then the retirements, Nick Gishin, Rota, and the big one, P3 in the championship, Panda. So folks, we're just going to allow now 2 or 3 minutes to see if any drivers would like to join the NFR cooldown room. We'll bring them into the comms box. Sometimes we get a full comms box, other times we get a dead comms box. It all depends on the moods of the drivers on that particular day. I think we're just going to have the one driver for now. We'll bring the driver in here for now. If anybody else does join, we'll bring them in. Just make sure he's not muted. No, he's not. Shane, can you hear me?
Can hear you loud and clear.
So we'll just keep our eyes on that cooldown room. There we go. Secret's just arrived, so we'll bring him in as well. There we go. We'll start with you, Shane. Winner of the sprint race. Very, very different conditions. Very, very wet. And then, well, feature race. You can tell us the story because that's a long story.
Yeah, it is a long story. Sprint race, yeah, I think racing in the wet is one of my strongest points. So yeah, it felt good to gap Katea in the sprint race and take the victory there. Qualifying had a bit of an issue, couldn't get onto the front row. Started in fifth, but the first lap I was sitting in second. And then Nick spun out in front of me and his car didn't ghost and broke my entire wing off, went wide into the next corner, grinding on the curbs, and then I think Panda didn't see me, or I don't know, and smashed into the back of me and he got badly damaged. So yeah, apologies for that one, Panda. That's what ended his race. And then yeah, just went into the pits, put on hards, changed my wing and just fought through the pack, and then that last safety car came out at the perfect time to keep that spot.
The other man we've got here in the comments, we've got in the comms box rather, we've got Secret. Secret, welcome to the comms box.
Thanks, James. Yeah, it was an interesting race.
Finished in P2. How was your sprint race? It's a lot of action. A lot of action happened.
I absolutely hate the rain. So yeah, just don't count on me if it's raining. Sprint race was shitty, but yeah, we picked up on the race. But I think lap 3 for hards and a wing change. Someone took off my wing the second lap. And then for some reason I got a speeding penalty in one of myself and J-Boy. So we came out
under a safety car.
Under the safety car. So yeah, it was just, I think I did a few good takeovers towards the end. And then lo and behold, a horse came out and took out a Merc. So I don't know who that was, but yeah, no, I'm really happy with the race at the end.
Of course, to the ones that are still watching out there, this is a perfect example of don't give up if things go wrong at the beginning. So your P1 and your P2 drivers had made pit stops by lap 4 for damage, for front wings. So yeah, you've actually both got that in common. You pit just before the safety car for a broken wing, and you finished P1 and 2. So don't give up at the start of a race.
And just let Shane by, because you're not going to catch him.
Today, Thursday night, tomorrow, Friday night. Shane, JPR returns.
Yeah, we start tomorrow night again. Remember that?
Where are we starting? Round 1. What is round 1? Should probably go have a
Imola. It's Imola.
Starting off with Imola. It's not.
Yeah.
I think it wasn't so long ago on this channel we had an Imola race that had all sorts of penalties.
Penalties.
I think it was an Imola race that we had like 1 or 2 drivers that stayed out of the penalties column. So hopefully that doesn't repeat itself tomorrow.
Nobody stayed out of the penalties. Everybody on the grid had a penalty at the end of it.
So yeah, no. Hopefully we can learn from that tomorrow night. And of course JPR just doing something a little bit different. We're running on the realistic settings. obviously, and I think what we've done is we've reversed it from the championship order of last season, basically trying to put some of the slower drivers in the faster cars and just create a little bit more racing, at least in the midfield. I think the fast drivers will still come through with their slow cars, but at least in the midfield it could shake things up. So of course, to everyone still watching, I'm about to end the stream. Thank you very much for joining. If it's your first visit, subscribe. If it's not your first visit, leave a like on the video, and we'll be back next week. Cheers. Okay.